What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome in to episode 339 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course, viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network, bringing you everything from the PLL, the NLL, Unleash Women's Lax, and of course, NCAA lacrosse as well. It's KB and Deej coming at you post PLL quarterfinals, post our 48 hours in Foxborough. Make that a movie. 48 in Foxborough. We're going to break down the quarterfinals, everything that happened from the Stars and Stripes Classic to both games in the postseason. Get you set for the semifinals going down this weekend on Long Island. The final four are set as they get one final hope to punch their ticket to Philadelphia for the championship game. We will also go through the NLL Dispersal Draft results. I know free agency has started. There's a lot of just like gray area with a lot of the free agency right now. So when we get more concrete free agency things, I was talking to Adam Levy today, Deej, and we're going to work to get him on the pod a lot during NLL season, and probably once the PLL wraps up, we'll get him to kind of break down free agency and how he views the status of the league now and everything. But before we get into all the good stuff, make sure you guys are following us on the socials across the board at OTB LaxPod. Follow Chase on Instagram at the PLL Pipeline. He's on Twitter at the PLL Pipeline as well. Follow Deej at SCS_NextGreat on Twitter. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. It really does help when you guys subscribe. We had a pretty massive meeting today. That the more you guys subscribe, the bigger and better that meeting could evolve into. So subscribe, because we also have a lineup of guests coming on in the next couple of weeks that I'm over the moon excited about. Plus PLL Media Day, when we see who's in the finals, there's going to be handfuls of guys coming on the pod next week from Media Day that we will have banked interviews for. So there's going to be players, coaches, and the like on this show for the next couple months, which is pretty exciting. So subscribe to the pod, leave a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, be a friend, tell a friend, and of course subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia and Outside the Box podcast YouTube channels. Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube, just search that bad boy. It's youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show every week, full video episodes of every show on our network, live streams, clips, all that good stuff. And the Outside the Box podcast YouTube channel is where you get the more in-depth lacrosse interviews that may be on our show. We'll be uploading the Matt DeLuca interview just by itself on that channel soon. You get clips from the show on there as well. It's youtube.com/@OTBLaxPod. We're at 837 subscribers on the main channel, though. So we're on that road to 1,000. We want to get to 900 before the PLL season ends. Let's make that happen. We got some work to do. Leave a like on the video. Drop a comment in the comment section. And, of course, ring the bell icon so you know when new videos go live. And this podcast is proudly presented by our good friends at Shootout For Soldiers. Their Baltimore weekend, by the time you guys are listening to this, is very close to getting underway. Happens Friday night into Saturday at USA Lacrosse headquarters. The hype videos that have been coming out are extraordinary. All of the things coming out of Shootout For Soldiers Baltimore have been unbelievable. I'm so excited to see how things turn out for them Friday into Saturday to put a beautiful bow on top of a extremely successful season for them. Shootout For Soldiers has been with us all summer long, helping us bring you the best content possible. And Shootout For Soldiers, Their mission is to use lacrosse as a platform to support American veterans and foster community engagement. With over a decade of dedicated collaboration from local communities, lacrosse players, and the U.S. military, Shootout for Soldiers has emerged as a highly regarded industry partner, offering an unmissable and eagerly anticipated event. Established in 2012 as a high school project, this event has experienced remarkable growth in both reach and impact, raising over $5 million to champion veteran service organizations with unwavering dedication to their mission. And along with that, over $5 million raised to date, they've also had over 7,500 attendees and over 2,500 players. Click the link in the description. I know they are still looking for volunteers for Baltimore. So if you in any way, shape, or form can help out at USA Lacrosse headquarters this weekend, find out how you can volunteer by clicking the link in the description. Find out how you can get involved with Wall Ball for Warfighters coming up in November. Look at their deployment kits as well. Bring Shootout for Soldiers to your community. And Shootout for Soldiers has been a huge part in helping us get to PLL weekends this year and experience so many moments. And we can't thank them enough for being our presenting sponsor. And Deej, what better way to wrap up the ad read? Shout out to Shootout for Soldiers for being the presenting sponsor of OTB. Then kicking things off with a recap of the Stars and Stripes Classic. What an awesome game. And it got started with a 2-bomb from the Navy SEALs. From top to bottom, the showmanship, the attention to detail, the gameplay, and just the competitive nature of the game was everything you could have asked for and then some. We had close to an hour worth of press conference after that game with both the Navy SEALs head coach and the CEO of the Navy SEALs Foundation, along with the head coach of the Green Berets and the CEO of the Green Beret Foundation. And I mean, you want to talk about getting something started, the inaugural Stars and Stripes Classic. That was a game that I hope becomes a staple of quarterfinals weekend moving forward. They did such a brilliant job, and not that I ever doubted the PLL for doing that. It's just like the way that everything came together. And shout out to our guy Danny Passavoy, who was a big proponent in making things happen for that. Danny is simply the best. It was an awesome game to watch. Like, the product was not watered down. It was full-fledged, a gritty battle until the end. The Navy SEALs came out on top like I predicted. But the game was awesome and thoroughly enjoyable, like from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing was that they were excited to be out there and back playing lacrosse, and they were already looking forward to doing it again. And there were a lot of people who maybe passed on the opportunity this time, or like wasn't sure quite like what it was going to be like, that are also interested. So it's just awesome to see that they were able to make this happen, and it turned out to be good. It was a great way to kick off quarterfinals. I think a lot of people gained an appreciation, an extra appreciation. I think there's already some appreciation there, but they gained an extra appreciation and really saw how entangled the sport of lacrosse is with the military.
And I think it was really cool too that, like, at the end of the day, like, everyone was a winner in that one because of just the camaraderie that was involved with it. The fact that everything went off without a hitch, and it was just such an awesome thing to witness. And like, not to a lesser, but to a like parallel degree almost, it gave you like that feeling because it was at Gillette, like that first PLL game where it was like the first of something that you feel like is going to be a special thing moving forward. And that's exactly like the vibe it gave off. I saw people, I think it was Neil who we got to meet this weekend too. Shout out to Neil, who tweeted that like it would be awesome to see like the Air Force and like Marines also like get teams together and make it like a tournament between all the factions of the military. That's something that like down the line I could see happening.
I heard the Coast Guard is the way to go there. I
that
heard
could also be
lacrosse is pretty big in the Coast Guard, and there's plenty of guys that play.
But that would also be like a way to down the line, like elevate. It's like, oh, here's our expansion team. It's the Coast Guard, like coming into the Stars and Stripes class and make it like a round robin tournament almost. But man, what an awesome product. Shout out to the PLL for making that happen. Shout out to the Navy SEAL Foundation, the Green Beret Foundation. It was pretty cool. We got like kind of our first interaction with college coaches for the first time. And I think they brought a lot of perspective to the game from just like being college coaches, but also obviously being coaches at those specific military schools with the Naval Academy and with the
Army West Point.
Army West Point. I don't know why I was blanking on West Point. But I think it was cool to kind of get their perspective as well as like current collegiate coaches, but also coaching guys who some of them haven't picked up a stick in a decade plus.
Yeah, and you could see some of that out there, but also like you could tell that they were very passionate about playing lacrosse and being back out there and putting out a good product, not only for the people watching, but for themselves. They wanted to be proud of being back on the field and playing the game that they love again. And it honestly was a spectacle to watch.
And I mean, I think the one thing that stood out to you and I in the press conference, and yes, I'm a huge baseball fan. You're a huge baseball fan, but it was pretty cool to hear the CEO of the Green Beret Foundation say that lacrosse is America's pastime.
Yes.
That was a bar.
Yeah, he kind of really laid it out to what it truly is. And as much of a baseball fan as I am, I make sure to express that to like the kids I coach that like this sport is like it's been here longer than a lot of us could even imagine. And this is truly what America was built off of is people that enjoy this sport and believe in this sport for reasons beyond just playing it because it's an enjoyable thing to do. So yeah, I always try and push that, and it was honestly great to hear somebody else along that wavelength.
And it was cool, like the way that they connected it to it still being about lacrosse at the end of the day too for these guys where like yes they have jobs and everything and like they mentioned like the families that are there with them for practice throughout the past couple of days that they were there and everyone just like was going up to people involved just thanking them for the opportunity and all that. I thought it was just really cool and like a just really like perspective opening type of a kickoff to the PLL postseason.
Yeah, and for them to be so thankful kind of gave me an idea, of looking at myself and how many things I should kind of be thankful for, and maybe some of the things I take for granted. Looking at kind of the lifestyle they have to live, and some of the things that went into making that whole game happen. Like I couldn't imagine living under those kind of restrictions. So like, just try not to take things for granted because, like, I mean, not saying that we're not going to because we all do, but this kind of put it into perspective. Some of the things I've been taking for granted for years now.
100%. So shout out to everybody that was involved with the inaugural Stars and Stripes Classic. And Deej, let's get to the quarterfinals recap. It is brought to you by the PLL app and our PLL app code. I'm finally happy I remembered to do this now rather than later. The PLL app is a game changer for us 100%. And I do have to say this because it drove me crazy today to see someone who claims to be the worldwide leader using AI to write game recaps. Nobody is reading that shit. I'm sorry. Like, the fact that they are doing that just grinded my gears in a way that I didn't know was possible because in the PLL app, everybody, there are 8 extremely talented, incredibly just like articulate with their words, and most of all, they are human writers that the PLL employs that deliver game stories, features, recaps, previews, everything you could possibly want. Shout out to every single beat writer and every single writer on the PLL staff. Sarah Griffin, Topher, Hayden, Zach Carey, Paul, the fantasy guru himself and interim Water Dogs beat writer, Jerome, Lauren Marola, and who am I forgetting? I'm not forgetting. I'm just blanking. Adam Lamberti. The best. Like, genuinely, each person fits their particular team so well. The in-depth analysis you get from every single one of them is second to none. Like, you are not going to get PLL written coverage from anyone better than the 8 writers on the PLL staff. They are truly the best, and we're very, very lucky to have them as friends first and foremost. Like, every single one of them we consider friends. To have them as just like extensions of the show almost, because what they write, we read, we talk about it on the show. They make our lives so much easier on this show, and everyone else in the media so much easier. I can't thank them enough for all the hard work they do, and you guys should be reading their stuff, and it's all available in the PLL app. Every single day there's new stuff in there. Download the PLL app, read every single beat writer's stories, articles. They have a newsletter that features every beat writer as well. And the app is gamified. You'll get 500 XP on your account if you go to the redeem code section and use code OTBPOD. You get 500 XP on your account. That's code OTBPOD in the redeem code section for 500 XP. But first and foremost, use the PLL app to read the incredible work from every single beat writer. We appreciate them unconditionally and thank them for all their hard work, and just seeing that ESPN AI thing with the PLL and the National Women's Soccer League drove me crazy today, dude.
I don't know what to say about it. Because it's kind of something we've talked about in the radio industry. Like, can you find AI that can do our job? Like, sure, but like, how local can they really be? Like, how much can they really talk to the audience about what's going on around them? Like, it's so limited because they can't actually see it. But I thought the whole thing was stupid, so of course I ignored it. Like, I ignore most of the stupid things I see on the internet, because if I didn't, my blood pressure would probably be through the roof, and a lot of people would probably unfollow me because I'd just constantly be in Twitter wars.
I was
So
happy to see the positive approach to the tweet I put out, and obviously I tagged every single beat writer in it to make sure that they got the love that they deserve. And it was really cool to see everyone in the Lacrosse Twitter space kind of get behind it, and everyone kind of just being like, this fucking sucks. Like, boo, tomato, I'm throwing tomatoes, boo. And I loved Lauren's tweet too, and how every single beat writer approached it, putting out their brand new article saying AI could never. And Lauren said, AI could never tell you how Miles Jones likes his eggs done. They couldn't. Only Lauren Marola could do that. And you know where you're going to get the best Uncrustables reviews? Sarah Griffin and Lauren Marola.
I could join them. I got solid Uncrustable reviews as well. But yeah,
We might need to make a mini series out of that.
Hey, I'm down. That's easy. We can eat them.
Sponsor the pod.
We can eat them warm. We can eat them cold. We can eat them frozen. We can eat them toasted. We can add toppings. Like, bro,
But if you don't know,
you don't know the can of worms you opening right now. If you want to get into that,
but hey, we're only doing it if Uncrustable sponsors it.
Hey, it's out there.
But shout out to every single beat writer. We appreciate the hell out of all 8 of you. And that goes without even saying, like, the amount of love and support we have for Wyatt, who has moved on to cover the LA Rams now. He's in that same breath and token as the other members that we mentioned there. But download the PLL app. Indeed, the quarterfinals have come and gone, and we have our final 4. Shall we start with the team that everybody doubts? The team that everybody counts out when the playoffs roll around just because they're towards the bottom of the standings. They're under 500 for their record. And yet somehow, some way, every single person out there fails to realize that the Carolina Chaos, formerly known as Chaos Lacrosse Club, use that as motivation. And I said it on last week's podcast, even when I was picking the Cannons. I said it on last week's pod. If there's any team that uses the negativity and the doubt and the just like, it's just us against the world mentality to fuel them to victory in the playoffs in particular, it is Andy Towers and the Carolina Chaos, and they did just that, and they held one of the most lethal offenses we have seen in pro lacrosse, pro field lacrosse for all you dweebs out there, to 4 points. What a performance.
I mean, yeah, it was great. That was it was this weekend was weird. I'll say that. Quarterfinals had a weird energy about it. Like the games weren't okay. The first game wasn't easy to watch, and not because it was a blowout. Like it just didn't really have playoff energy to it.
I wish they would have
And like,
flip-flopped the start times.
yes,
Or not the start
yes,
times, but like which team was
the
playing in
games,
those time
yeah.
slots.
The Cannons should have been playing the late night game. I think that would have helped with the energy a little bit. The crowd was helpful. They were into it, but like Gillette was a little big. There was that point, but also just the Cannons never really had it. You could see from like the very beginning they weren't like there to play for real. And like sometimes you can get away with that, but like one team you can't do that against in the playoffs is Chaos. Like they're one of those teams that believes in simply just getting there. And then that's when they really turn the stove on and they get hot. So like they kind of just fell victim to that monster of a team in Chaos in the playoffs. But it just had a weird energy to it. It didn't feel good. And I wish there were more people there for the Whip Snakes Outlaws game because it was a very good game. It was a lot easier to watch and it was very back and forth, but like the energy wasn't necessarily there for that game either. Like it felt like a playoff game and that part was there, but like the crowd energy that would normally accompany a playoff game like that was not there because everybody went home. Boston lost. It wasn't like it was a warm day. Your favorite team loses. Why are you going to stay? I get it.
Here's something that stands out to me that typically in any given PLL game, I think you would agree with me here to some extension. If a team you're playing against shot 24.2% as a team and your goalie saved 60% of the shots he faced, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying that team probably won, wouldn't you? It's a pretty solid goalie day, and you're holding the team under a quarter, like, fraction of shooting.
Oh, you're saying the other team shot 20.
Like, your opponent shot
Okay.
24.2%.
I mean,
your team's goalie saved 60% of the shots faced,
maybe.
and you held the team to 8 goals. I think every coach this year, to some degree, has said if you hold the team to 8 goals or a below double-digit score, or even some of them being like you hold the team to 10 goals, you win. But when you as a team shoot 9.8% and score 4 goals and your high-octane tandem is held to 1 point in the game, that is a disaster performance from this Cannons team. And that's no disrespect to anybody. It was just not, like you said, like they were not firing at all on a level that we all season saw this Cannons team perform at.
It just didn't look like they wanted. Not that I shouldn't say that. It just didn't look like they were there.
And Coach Holman said in the press conference, like when the second half rolled around, like you could see it that the frustrations were kicking in. And that's when you start pressing. That's when you start doing things that aren't accustomed to what you do and what your team philosophy is. And you could see that throughout the entire second half. Like they were just trying to rip shots to see if anything would fall. And at that point, it was just like Chaos had all of the confidence because they had built up that lead. And then in the third quarter, they shut them out and went on a 3-0 run to start the second half. And it was one of those things that Chaos used the fuel. Their guy got suspended. And they said, hey, it's next man up mentality. And we're going to go out and we're going to win a ball game. And I think, Andy Towers' locker room speech before the game that the Chaos account put out had me ready to run through a brick wall, talking about how that team uses everyone else as a prop in their story. And I was like, God damn, he's going for the jugular, and it's only the quarterfinals. And then on the flip side, I don't know if you saw Coach Holman's.
I did not see Holman's. I didn't even see Towers, but
Holman called out Pat Cav in particular and said, there's 6 other fucking teams that didn't want you. But we did. There's 1 first-round pick in this fucking locker room. I was like, damn.
That's just funny because
Came
like
with my boy's neck.
like what, bro?
There
He
was
didn't
more.
really-
There was more to it, but it was like he locked eyes with Pat Cav, and that's
I
what
know,
clicked
but
for him.
like he didn't even fit on none of the other teams. I'm done, bro. I'm done. I'm not even gonna go into that. Yeah, Brian, you know where we at, bro.
And I know a lot of people were questioning, and I'll just say go watch the Cannons post-game press conference because I asked Coach Holman about this. A lot of people questioning Chris Eslanian being up at attack, Pat Cav being at the midfield and everything. Coach Holman answered that in the exact way you would want to hear him answer it. It wasn't coach speak. It was genuine response to everything there. So I highly encourage listening to that. On the, goalie side of things, damn near 79% save percentage for the boy, Blaze Reardon. He's just different, bro. Playoff Blaze is even an echelon above regular Blaze.
Well, the thing is, Cannon started the game shooting from the outside. That's not going to help you. That's just going to help Blaze get warmed up. Once Blaze is warm, it's tough getting beat. Like it's tough getting the ball by him. That's just the way it goes. And that's like a lot of goalies, really. Like the more shots they can see, the more confident they get, the better they move in the cage, and it's harder to score. That's just the name of the game. Excuse me. They did an awful job of getting into the crease, getting easy dunks, and opening up the defense of Chaos. Instead, they kind of just kept it around the perimeter, didn't move it much, and kind of just dodged. It turned into gave me horrible flashbacks of watching a certain team for the last couple of years and how it's worked out for them on offense.
I'm not going to open that can of worms right now.
Thank you.
But, Chaos did enough offensively, and, 8 goals is all they needed because the defense was incredible. Blaze was marvelous. And I think you got to give a lot of credit, and Blaze did this when I asked him about it. You got to give a lot of credit to somebody like Will Bowen in his second season, somebody like Jack Posey in his rookie year, who Blaze mentioned and Towers has mentioned before. Like every game this year, he flew out on his own dime if he was not part of the game day roster and was there with the team because he wanted to get better. He wanted to be there. Towers mentioned the same thing about James Riley doing the same thing with Nick Rowlett and Nick being there to train with him to get him ready to go. And I think that just speaks to the culture of this Chaos team. And everyone wants to talk about how they're the bad boys and smash mouth type of lacrosse and in your face and kind of the villains or whatever. But like genuinely, like Kyle Jackson brought it up, and I know Hayden tweeted about this too earlier this year. Like the team that becomes the family the most by the end of the year is the team that ends up winning the championship. And this Chaos team, even though they've had moving parts, they've had a lot of new faces come in, that culture has remained in that locker room. And it starts with AT, and it comes from guys like Blaze. It comes from guys like Jared, comes from guys like KJ. And no matter who steps into that locker room, they're ready to rock and roll with each other, and they play for each other. And I think that's a big part of why they're successful in the playoffs.
It always works out that way. That's almost every level of sports. The closer you get to your teammates, the better it works out because you don't want to let that guy down that's next to you. You don't want to be the reason why that kid cries or that kid's upset that you lost or their dad is screaming at them because they didn't win the game. Like, it all factors in because you all start to learn about each other. You all love being next to each other and playing the same sport together. And in a sport where you're only getting to do that on the weekends, the time you spend is even more valuable to you, and it's even more of a task for you to get that bond and really feel like it's genuine. So, I would have to agree with that sentiment, but I don't like that. And it's no slight to what I'm about to say, but you know how I feel about difference in matchups in the most critical part of the season. I would like to see some variety there. And with the things you've just said, it led me to believe that we're going to see two teams play each other for the championship for the third time. And that would really make me I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. Not that I wouldn't not that I don't want those teams to be successful, not what I'm saying. But I would really prefer to see a new matchup, however that might shake out. I'm opposed to any matchup being the way it is, except for the one we've already seen out of these 4 teams, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll genuinely say I think that's the lowest percentage.
Is it though? Because how many times did you tell me it feels like a certain team's year this year?
Yeah, it does.
And now you're telling me that the team who feels the
That's
most
not
like
saying that
family.
it's going to be.
But I'm just saying, if it
That
feels
team
like,
also got a lucky bounce and was this close to being eliminated in the quarterfinals.
hey, but isn't that their jig? Isn't that just how they get down when they win?
And now they got to face the top dogs.
Hey, I'm just saying it. I don't want. All I'm saying is I would hope that that's not.
You know what
happens.
really sucks is that the semifinals matchups both would make impeccable championship games.
Yes, and it would be
Because
nice to see.
it would
That's what I mean.
it
We
would
haven't
finally
seen.
give credence to the fabricated rivalry that we always talk about that was never a rivalry to begin with. It was just
Oh,
like it was
I'm
a
like,
it was a league forced rivalry that was never won. And it would finally give meaning to that matchup. And then the other one is one of the best rivalries in the league.
and I would say that one really only gets meaning from the matchup if a certain team wins.
Correct.
If the team that I was referencing earlier were to win that matchup, then
It's
it
over.
wouldn't
It's
matter.
over. It's over.
And but the chaos. I guess I'm starting to give things away if I start saying names. One of these matchups is one that we have talked about as a proven rivalry since 21. After a blockbuster trade, that really
And it really like
that and those
as the
games
season went on.
those games following that trade really put things into, like, almost cemented that rivalry, and then it's only picked up in pace over the last couple of years.
With the amount of player change between those teams and like guys leaving one of those teams to go to another, like Chaos Archers is and Diggs put this out there. Chaos Archers is everything that Whips Woods was, brought up to be, and it's 100% accurate.
Yep. Ain't even mad at it. Can totally admit it. Because it's our fault. Woods been dropping the ball on that since 19. Yep.
So the Chaos move on, and we do have a clear-cut look at what the actual bracket is, because initially the bracket on the website was incorrect. The bracket on the poster on social media for semifinals was correct. The Chaos are moving on to take on the 2-seeded Archers. And what I do like about the semifinals, though, the way that it played out, is that it is teams from the Eastern Conference, teams from the Western Conference playing each other.
Yep.
And we'll go to the final one way or the other. It will be an East-West final.
And that's only because Chaos won.
And
so shout
another
out
team.
Chaos. Huh?
And another team winning.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if Chaos wouldn't have won, then it would have been 3 East. But I guess if Chaos and Candace won, it would have been 3. Okay. I see what
Yeah,
you're
if the
saying.
Outlaws would have won, we would have had.
I see what It would have been split. I could
No,
have been
'cause
split. I see what you said.
if Outlaws
You get
Chaos won,
just
we'd
go
also
on.
have the Archers there,
Just
and
just go on. Just go on.
so Chaos
It's
move
it's
on. Shout
it's
out to
okay.
them. Big time win for the boys. Happy for them. And then the other matchup was the Maryland Whipsnakes and the Denver Outlaws in a one-score game. The Whipsnakes survive 11-10 and move on to the semifinals where they will meet the New York Atlas on Long Island. TJ Malone does it again in the postseason. 5 points, led all scorers in this game. One of the big things that stood out to me, though, shout out to Luke Weirman. Held his own against Nardella in this one. Made a lot of adjustments from the last time these two teams played where Nards really worked him in that first matchup. But Weirman made a lot of adjustments. Went 10 of 21 at the stripe. Nards went 12 of 22. Brendan Krebs and Owen McElroy were fantastic in this game, making unbelievable saves when their teams needed them. And I mean, there was one funky, freaky play in this game that our guy Hutton Jackson kind of paralleled to a classic MLL game that also involved the Denver Outlaws and Eric Law, and it just didn't bounce the Outlaws' way this time, and that ended up being the difference in this one at the end of the day. But I want to say this Outlaws team, they showed up. You know, we talked about we didn't know what version of the Outlaws was going to show up in this game where they have been so Jekyll and Hyde. They showed up. They played a really solid game for a young squad, the youngest team in the league, and their young guys showed up. Your 4 leading scorers in this game are either second year or rookies, being Sam Hanley, Dalton Young, Brennan O'Neill, Cross Ferrara. Those were your top 4 leading scorers for the Outlaws in this game, and your other scorers were Jesse Bernhardt and Graham Bundy, so another rookie in that mix. Another thing that was interesting to me, and I mean, kudos to the Whipsnakes defensively and what they were able to do, Justin Anderson had 1 shot in this game. That's so uncharacteristic of his game, even when he's been in such a Swiss Army knife type of role for the Outlaws this year. That stood out to me in a big way. He only had 11 touches in this game too. So they kind of neutralized him as a threat, because in most games we're seeing Justin Anderson score, whether it's an assist, a goal, at least once. So that was something that at the end of the day I was like, damn, they held JA scoreless and to 1 shot.
Hey, I'm not going to.
This guy. He turns 25. He thinks he can clown on me.
I'm not even doing. Hey, bro.
Hashtag happy birthday, Deej, in the comment section. Get this man's head bigger than ever.
Thank you. The bigger, like I just noticed, like when you really like a player, you be talking about like crazy. Like Jay is solid, bro. Like, and not that, no disrespect to Jay. Like, I think he's honestly one of the best parts of Denver, and was a very solid pick for them, and is something that they should build around for the next few years. But like, I don't think the Whipsnakes did anything special to hold him scoreless. He kind of just like, if you kind of like watch the game, it like just like the young guys took over. They were like, hey, like, I understand you old heads been here before, bro, but like, y'all low key tired. We got the energy. We got this. Just give us the ball. Occupy some space. Be available if we need you. But
I was
balling, dog.
I was correct in my estimation, though. There was 1 game this year Justin Anderson in the regular season was held scoreless, though.
I wasn't saying it's not a thing.
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying in general. I was like, it feels like every game he's got at least 1 point, and outside of their game in July against the Cannons, he scored in every single game at least 1 point.
But like you could see it when they were playing. Like they like kicked it back and we're like, hey, like, you know how like, you probably don't know, but you go to like the Y, you're playing basketball, like you and your homies.
Bro,
like,
I played basketball when I was younger.
And the old heads are there, right? So like y'all start running with the old heads, but like y'all are just like keeping it casual, like hooping and like making sure it's competitive, just having a good time. And then they start like talking or like they beat you on. They're like, oh yeah, the old head's always been. And then you're like, y'all giving each other that look, and you're like, all right, like it's time to play ball for real. Like that's kind of what the young guys did
Y'all heard
on
this
this
chat.
team.
He don't think I know ball. That's crazy. He don't think I know YMCA
All
ball.
I'm saying is,
That's crazy.
all I'm saying is the young guys all looked at each other in the locker room and were like, hey, we're about the ball. And they're like, hey, Eric Law,
who definitely got banged up because he walked in the press conference with a big old ice bag on his ankle, which was unfortunate.
They're like, hey, Eric, hang out at X, chase for us, but we only really need you every now and then. J.A.
It was just one. Eric Law also got held to one shot.
J.A. kind of just be a traffic cone out here, moving around, occupying space, and
don't call that man Chris Paul.
Be in people's way.
That's like crazy. He just called Justin Anderson Chris Paul. That's
they kind of just
unreal.
needed him to be in people's way and like make them go another way, detour.
J.A., I would never disrespect you like that.
That was no disrespect.
He's also taller than a traffic cone. That's crazy.
All I'm saying, no disrespect in that. I'm just saying, like, the young guys really took a hold of this, and like, I wasn't trying to give no extra kudos to the Whip Snakes D. That's really all that came down to.
Because they played well.
They didn't do anything special though. I don't know what they did. They didn't do nothing. He just wasn't really part of the offensive game plan this time around. It's okay. It's okay.
Matt Dunn and Tim Muller said, we've been here before. We're going to lock down and stand on business. And that's exactly what they did.
But wasn't neither one of them guarding Justin Anderson. So what are you talking about?
You said the defense ain't do nothing special.
They didn't. They just played defense. There was no special game plan there. They went out and just said, we are better. That's it.
Yeah, that young boy, Ajax Zapatello, said, bot scored the first goal of the game for them. Nobody had that on the bingo card.
Like, what are you talking about?
You're just a Whips
right
hater.
now?
It's okay. That's why Stags
I am a little bit
all the time.
Hey, but we started to bond this week, so it's cool.
Yeah, now he ain't gonna bond with you. He
relax.
He gonna hold up the Fortnite L and be like, eh.
Relax, bro.
Especially if they win this week.
You know what's crazy is he would say the same thing right now. We ain't do nothing special on defense. We just played.
No, he said
you be hearing him.
He was praising Tim Muller.
Yeah, Tim Muller, a defender,
which I just said,
who guarded an attackman. We ain't talking about He wasn't talking about Justin Anderson.
This man,
he wasn't talking about Justin Anderson.
This is what we're learning, everybody. DJ hates the Whip Snakes, which we already knew, and he hates Justin Anderson.
I do not hate Justin Anderson.
I will do a solo interview with Justin Anderson on this pod because DJ clearly has a vendetta against JA21.
Do not throw that against me like that. Do not throw those malicious words out there. Like I said that. I am a Whip Snakes hater. We know that. It's deep down in me as a Woods fan. Me and Stags are getting over that. So we'll worry about that at a different time.
He's gonna listen to this. He follows the pod. He's gonna hear this. And
he would. I keep telling you, he would agree with me.
He's gonna pull a Dion on you and say he ain't gonna answer your questions.
All right, we're gonna see about that.
He's gonna say you attacked his character.
Oh, stop it! Me and him are very similar when it comes to coach talk. Yes, he shouted out Tim Muller. Tim Muller's a defenseman.
Yeah, but you just said you weren't trying to give the defense any credit.
Because they didn't do anything outside of play normal DV. You made it sound like they had some secret formula to stop Justin Anderson.
I never said they were on Krabby Patty mode.
Bro, you said, I don't know what they did. They just played defense. That's all I'm saying is they didn't do nothing special. They
Number one, defense. I was trying to sing the praises of a great season that Justin Anderson had. Number two, the Whip Snakes.
Shout out Justin Anderson. He did have a great season.
Yeah,
I do want to point that out.
That man backtracking now.
He was great for them. I'm not backtracking. I said this has nothing to do with Justin Anderson at the beginning. This is about you
because I'm a fan of Justin Anderson's game.
No. Yeah. That you blowing it out of proportion. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not
because you be doing that, and it's okay.
No, I'm not.
It's okay because I be doing that.
The stats proved it.
It's okay because I be doing that. Like realistically. He just wasn't part of the game plan. But if one of my favorite players gets shut down like that, I'm going to say the same thing. Like, dang, bro, they really just lock my mans up. It ain't he wasn't a part of the game plan. It was he got locked up, and I'm mad about it.
You just
I get you.
backtrack again.
I didn't backtrack.
You just say at the end of the day, he wasn't part of the game plan.
That's what I'm saying. But if I was in your shoes and it's one of my guys, I would say the same thing you are saying. But since it's not me, he just wasn't part of the game plan, bro. It's okay.
Spotify poll: should I do the Justin Anderson interview solo, or should DJ just have to sit there muted? Let me know.
Or option C, I get to do the interview too. Like, I don't hate Justin Anderson. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Y'all see me on YouTube, y'all? No cap.
Justin Anderson, you good, my guy. Fantastic season.
Whips move on. Now I'm really gonna harken home on this is the Whips year. Just to see you crumble.
You ain't gonna do that.
This is their year.
Because you don't even really want to do that.
It's the summer of snakes.
You don't even really want that.
I wouldn't care. This is a new Whip Snakes team.
I hear you, bro.
It's summer of snakes. And they're moving on.
No kids. I'm down to see Colin lift that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And Joe Nardella, that's my friend.
I got a Nardella jersey. I'm a Nardella guy.
That's our friend.
Just saying.
I would like to see Sarah Griffin celebrate the summer of Patra.
Facts.
The show goes on. Hey, Matt Rambo, Philly guy. The agenda's there.
We love you, Justin Anderson.
My guy, Ryan Conrad. Vindicated. See him lift another trophy. I'm here for it.
You wouldn't be salty?
No, I'd be happy for him. Him and Alex Mazzone. Because they deserve it.
Okay.
It's the Whip Snakes year.
Go Chaos.
Whips are moving on. Chaos are moving on. I really hope to see you truly crumble that it is Whips Chaos.
Bro, why you just do all that?
Because it would still be...
You calling me a hater.
From my point of view, it would be a great game, no matter what. But you would be beside yourself, and it would be so funny. I can't believe we have another rematch. It's the third time they've played each other in the championship game. Yeah, it would settle it all.
The crazy part is, bro, I would be so mad. I
great.
hate that, bro. Like,
seething.
As much of a LeBron fan as I am, seeing him play the Warriors, 4 years in a row, bro, made me want to throw up. Either give the Warriors a new opponent or put somebody else up for LeBron to go against. This is not it. So yeah, I would
this matchup.
I would be mad. But it's been 3 times in 6 years. That's half the time. Too much.
Half the time it works every time.
Don't give me that.
Chaos would become the most frequented team to the championship if they go.
Yes.
I also loved our guy, Rosie, his tweet. In the Final Four, 3 of the 4 remaining teams are former champions. The other is the New York Atlas.
Yes.
I mean, do we really want to see like Super Saiyan Diggs on the timeline if the Atlas move on to the championship?
Yes.
Let alone give them an opportunity to win.
Yes. As much as him and Brian won't shut up about it, that's exactly what the timeline needs right now.
But here's the thing: does it need that, or does it need the complete polar opposite and the meltdown that they would have, and how hilarious it would be?
No. The meltdown
of everyone tweeting the Homer Simpson couch gif at them.
No, I need them in the championship game losing to Archers if that is going to be a meltdown. I want to see that meltdown. Seeing them get all the way there and then losing to a Tom Schreiber-less Archers.
Get bowed up.
Oh, Oh, without Tom Schreiber? Bro, they would crumble.
Or if they lost to the underappreciated, always doubted
But
4-6 chaos squad.
They would just blame it on Jack Rowlett, Josh Byrne, and Blaze. They'd be like, but they got those three, so like it's fine because like
the Chaos official Twitter account absolutely dunked on all of them.
oh yeah,
Like
oh yeah,
you got to shut it down for a week after that. Like they can't do an episode this week.
you know they're going to.
And I love every single person on that show to death. But y'all can't record an episode this week.
They're going to.
You got to put out a notes app. They got to put out a notes app saying we got eviscerated on the timeline.
I mean, they got to do how we do. When we're wrong, we come out and we flat out say it.
They got
and then they got to hope for some redemption. You got to accept what it was and
they were
on.
the living embodiment of. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm out here getting cooked.
Bro, got bodied.
That was 4 bodies back to back to back to back from one Twitter account.
Hey, I'm just.
They said more like shit talk. Oh my god!
I'm just glad they stayed away from us.
Whew. I covered our bases there.
Not that we didn't like talk down,
right?
But like we also didn't pick them to win last week, so.
Right? But we did cover our bases, which was good. So
the
Final Four set. It is the top 4 teams. These 4 teams will also see each other in February at the Champ Series. So, little preview. Or I'm sorry, no, one of them got eliminated. The Cannons. It is a team that everyone yearns to see in the Champ Series with the Chaos, but it'll never happen because the iteration of the Chaos that you'd want to see there would not be eligible to play. But it's 3 out of 4 of the teams in the Champ Series. You're 1 versus 4, 2 versus 6. It's Atlas Whipsnakes and it's Archers Chaos. And that's the semifinals. And Deej, before we get into the semifinals, I told you before we start recording, I have some amazing, fantastic, lovely, some of this right here. Next week's episode will feature the one, the only. I want to properly roll this out. The ever so popular, the performing at the PLL Semifinals, Sammy Adams will be on the pod next week.
Gang, 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 gang.
We will be recording with Sammy. He'll be on our championship preview episode along with who the hell knows, because Connor Fields has agreed in principle to come on the pod. Obviously, it won't be for semifinals, but he has agreed in principle and said, let's do it. So Connor Fields is on the clock. And we were talking in our group chat, now that Connor has accepted the guest gauntlet, we are going to make that a thing on the show. So not only are we going to ask Sammy Adams, who he wants to see on the show, because I think it would be great to just see where his brain would go with it. Every guest here on out, we put the guest gauntlet in their hand and they lob it out. And then there's a social clip for us to say, hey, this person called you out to come on the pod. It's time for you to come on the pod. Connor Fields, we extended that to you. And now it's time to rock and roll. Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll. So Connor Fields will be coming on the show pretty soon. Sammy Adams will be on next week's episode. And I'm very excited about that. I was talking to him today, and I'm excited for his performance on Long Island for the PLL Semifinals. And Deej, the PLL Semifinals are here. And I clicked the wrong semifinals button there for everybody watching on YouTube. I apologize. But the PLL Semifinals are here. It's Atlas Whipsnakes, Archers Chaos. 5 p.m. is Atlas Whips. 7:30 p.m. is Archers Chaos. What are you looking forward to in the semifinals, Deej?
This is a fun one because it's really a matchup of two high octane offenses, and then the other matchup is really going to be focused on the defenses and their goalies. Whipsnake's Atlas is going to be fun. Flat out. You got one of the best offenses we've ever seen step out onto a field. And everybody's kind of wondering what they're going to be able to do. We saw them get an early exit last year, and we're used to early exits from this team. Are they going to be able to kind of finally peek through and get that first, glance at the trophy and first appearance in a championship game, or are we getting the all reliable with fresh new faces coming back through in the Maryland Whipsnakes? I think I'm probably a little more excited for that game than the Chaos Archers game. Not that I'm not excited for the Chaos Archers game. Thoroughly looking forward to seeing what the Archers are like without Tom Schreiber, especially in the playoffs, something that they've never had to deal with in their history as a team. So that's going to be interesting having him on the sideline rather than out on the field, and how that affects them, especially with him being somewhat of a Blaze Reardon killer. Like he kind of there's certain guys that seem to have a better chance of scoring. Why are you?
No, I'm
thinking
trying to
that
remember
hard?
because I know in the draft pick game, Tom was out because he had the shoulder
Man,
injury. No, I'm just trying to remember if he got hurt earlier in that post, like if he got hurt in Ohio when they were still in the playoffs. I forget because it was
but
6
like
years ago.
even if they did, that's during the playoffs, which means like he was in the game.
I just forget like
So
when he got hurt because that's the
he,
only other year I remember him being out. Obviously,
yeah, but I'm pretty sure he played in that game in Columbus.
let's see if I can find that.
I'm almost positive. Threw off my whole train of thought. Yeah, it's gonna be weird for him to be on the sideline, but yeah, I think that one comes down to that's what I was talking about. The guys that are just Blaze beaters. There's certain guys that can get a shot past Blaze. Like Zed Williams is a great example when you think of the Whip Snakes. Ryder Garns is a great example for the Woods. And Tom Schreiber is one of those guys when it comes to the Archers. And they're kind of spread around the league. Thowers and McCardle are pretty solid for the Water Dogs. He's that guy, so I wonder kind of where they're going to go. I think maybe Connor Fields can have some success there, having practiced against Blaze so often. It'll just be interesting to see their offensive strategy. It'll be interesting to see Jack back out on the field and how seamless that transition should be, and if that's the case, or if he's got some first playoff jitters, etc. going into there. And then obviously the face-off matchup there. Is Sis going to dominate, or is James Riley going to put together another very good performance like he did against Zach Tucci?
Tom definitely got hurt in that Redwoods game. Just looking at his stats from it, because he had 2 assists and 1 shot on goal, and that's not Tom Schreiber-esque in the playoffs whatsoever. So he definitely got hurt in that game. But I couldn't remember. I was like, when did? Because I remember walking up to him in 2019 after that game, and like that was like my first interaction with Tom Schreiber, and he had like the sling on and everything. And I just couldn't remember when it happened. But sign me up for Archer's Chaos. 7th under the lights at night is going to be unbelievable. And huge news for the Archers. Yes, they're down Tom Schreiber, but they are up a Matt Moore. Matt Moore is activated off of injured reserve this week. Should be ready to rock and roll for this game. That's a huge returning piece for them. Obviously, you want to see how Matt Moore is coming off that injury, but to have his presence and the way that he was playing kind of down the stretch before he got injured was night and day from the start of his season, and he will tell you that directly. He told me that directly in Fairfield, and I think it's going to be able to open up a lot of things offensively for them where they have another option. And let's not discredit what Grant Amen's going to be able to do. Having a healthy Grant Amen at this point in the season is huge for them. Obviously, he was healthy for them down the stretch last year for them to win a championship, and having his just abilities across the board, whether it's they put him at attack, he's coming out of the box, he's playing midfield, whatever it may be, like his presence is something that the Chaos defense are definitely going to have to be honed in on, especially with Tom being out. Like that's going to be, I think, a point of emphasis is like making sure Grant isn't the one that beats them.
I maybe, but like I think that's a little bit easier because I think if you just poll him, you're kind of solving his scoring issue. He wasn't very good off ball. Not that he was just standing there and moving, but like he wasn't shooting off ball. Most, if not all, of his goals this year were unassisted. He was purely going off the dodge. So if you put Troy Ray on him, that situation's solved. I think it's more of slowing down the ball movement or playing really good off ball. You can't lose Mac O'Keefe off ball. And then you got to have somebody who's very good late clock scenarios, which is often why I think Jared Newman is the one that guards Connor Fields, is because in a late clock scenario, they're going to Connor Fields and he's always going to do something to get a shot off. How difficult can you make that shot to make it easier for Blaze Reardon to save? Those are the kind of things that are going to be the keys for the Chaos this week. I think Grant is a little more simple than some people may think. I think that may get overcomplicated. I think you just poll him, and if he wants to dodge, you force him to dodge on a pole, and that should solve most of that issue.
I think a big part,
but you still have to play really good off ball because he was good at finding guys and assisting the ball. So it really goes back to, I say, it goes back to off ball movement, like, you know, being able to play good off ball defense. That's always what defense really goes back to. But as far as like him affecting the game in a scoring wise way, if you force him to dodge on a pole every single time, you're going to limit his offensive production because he's not really moving off ball to get shots.
This is the most assists Grant Amon's had since 2021, which, if I'm not mistaken, he was an MVP candidate or an Attackman of the Year. That's the year he won Attackman of the Year.
He definitely was AOY.
Where he had 22 assists, and he had 14 assists in the bubble in his rookie year, but 13 second most in a traditional season for Grant. So he was definitely moving the ball at a pretty solid clip, and obviously he stayed healthy, played in all 10 games, and hopefully that health continues for him throughout the rest of the postseason as long as the Archers are there. I think the biggest thing, though, is just getting Mac O'Keefe going. You know, we saw Mac O'Keefe this year have games where it wasn't, not that you want it to just be like him, he's the focal point, that's it, but like, you know how lethal of a shooter Mac O'Keefe can be, and if you have that going for you and he's, you know, firing on all cylinders, he's a tough matchup for anybody.
Yeah, and I think he also had the luxury of not necessarily having to be going. Like, Archers are one of those teams that was kind of stocked with offensive talent. So if one guy was slipping, there were 2, 3, 4 guys there to pick up the slack. He's now kind of going to be needed a little bit more, and I think he knows that. And he should know that. I'm sure it's a conversation him and the coaches have had, and it's something he's ready to do. So coming in with that kind of focus and energy and knowing what exactly is going to be needed from you ahead of time kind of helps you set the stage for yourself. And a shooter like him, man, all he needs to see is one go in, and he's feeling good.
And I'll tell you this, I'm looking at his stats from this year. He combined for 6 points against the Chaos in their 2 matchups this year. The most shots in a game that Mac O'Keefe took, 2 out of the 3 highest were against the Carolina Chaos. He took 9 shots in their first matchup in Philly. He took 12 in their matchup in August. And the only other game where he took at least 9 shots was against the Whip Snakes 4th of July weekend. So he likes shooting on his former teammate. That's for damn sure. And I think just the only other thing that I take away from that is just the shooting percentages. While the shots were high, the shooting percentages were the lowest because he's taking more shots. So he's going to want to connect on more of those with the playoffs here. And I mean, with Mac, like, he's got the range. So, like, you have a 2-point threat from beyond the arc for you there. And I think if he gets 1 2-pointer to drop, which he did in their first matchup, If I'm not, no, I'm sorry, he had an assist in that game. One of his 3 assists on the season. If he gets a 2-pointer fall against Blaze, that's just level up confidence boost for Mac O'Keefe and just where he's going to feel comfortable shooting from.
I think more of it is going to come from some of the success from his teammates around him. Like I was saying with the Cannons, like you start shooting from the outside at the beginning of the game, it's not good for you. So I think his shooting ability will really shine if he's getting some finishes on the inside from Dyson Williams and Trey LeClaire, Connor Fields. And you got to do the dirty work and to really, open up shooting lanes on Blaze. So that's where this team has to go first. And then you're going to be able to open that up and really stretch things out. Or power play opportunities. Chaos does pick up penalties. So when you're on the power play, I think that's a great opportunity to let some twos fly, get the ball moving, get the defense sucked down a little bit down on the crease, and then let one fly from the outside.
Pause.
You're ridiculous, dude. We're adults, okay? We're adults.
Turns 25 and he thinks we can't make a pause joke.
We're adults, man.
Unreal. Get a load of this guy.
Be mature, man.
Oh, brother.
Ridiculous.
This guy stinks.
Could you imagine? I just turned 25 and I'm like, hey, bro, no. We're not that kind of podcast anymore.
This man's like, I'm a child of God.
Actually.
Well, actually, guys, fucking dweeb. Little bit of analysis on the early matchup before we get to our picks of the week. Atlas whips. Just get your popcorn ready for every single face-off. Like, let's rock and roll from the stripe. This is Greg Arenlian's dream. This is Jerry Raganese's dream. We need an alternate broadcast for this game with those two in the booth.
I would be here for that. The framework is laid, people.
The stripe cast.
The framework is laid. We seen what the Manning cast has done for the people. The work is there. Just fill in the blanks.
Since you don't think this Whipsnake's defense is special, what do you
go, bro? I didn't say all. All right, bro.
What do you do against this special Atlas offense with a Whipsnake's defense?
I mean, this one's clear. Zapatello gets Schellenberger like he's been doing for years at Maryland. You give Matt Dunn your defensive player of the year. You tell him to go out there and stop the MVP and prove why you're possibly the best defensive player in the league. And then Muller does what Muller does and silently takes out the assassin that is Xander Dixon. And And then of course you got to pull Dox or Miles. Depending on who's out, maybe you pull Costabile.
Man, I'm looking at Shelley's season this year too, because it's just like he started off so hot, obviously, that first game. And then that game against the Redwoods, he had 7 points. But like you eliminate those 2 games, which you obviously can't do in a thing, but just like in a hypothetical, you eliminate those 2 games, and it's like, man, it was a pedestrian season.
But once again, he's on a team that was stacked with offensive talent, and it was okay for him to not necessarily show up.
And he got injured, obviously, and he missed 2 games.
He'd been injured, if you ask me. Most guys coming off of D1 college that are playing the seasons he was playing and being used the way he was were injured. Pat Cav, we've seen it year after year. A lot of these draft picks end up not playing right away because they're nursing an injury that they had during the tournament. But they weren't going to bow out of the tournament on their way to a possible national championship or on their way to a national championship. They just played through it.
You take away his debut and that game against the Redwoods, Shelley had 11 points.
I know. But somehow, some way, people were telling me that was the better option for the Denver Outlaws. Not that Shelley isn't good. Not that if he had been healthy the entire season that he wouldn't have had better numbers. But there's no way I'm putting Shelley over Bennett O'Neill. And my thing is probably based more so off potential. Like, Shelley's a very great player. He's a very good ex-attackman. Arguably can play from up top and do some things and really score the ball and facilitate an offense. But as far as somebody who can change a game and really have an imprint on a game, Brennan O'Neill was that guy in this draft.
I feel so much.
CJ Kirst is that guy in this upcoming draft. Like, there's always one guy that clearly has a bigger impact on the game than everybody else. Brennan was that guy this year.
I feel so much better about my argument about how Graham Bundy Jr. should have been a Rookie of the Year finalist. Comparatively speaking, just looking at those two side by side. You do the math. You look at all the stats. Let me know in the YouTube comment section. That's no slight to Shelley either, but
at all.
I just think Graham Bundy Jr. as a whole put on a better season. But yeah, I'm excited for the matchup with the Stripe, and then my game I'm locked and loaded for is obviously the rivalry of Chaos Archers, which brings us to heading over to the pick pond and our PLL semifinal picks of the week, brought to you by our pals over at Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, only 120 calories and just 8 grams of carbs. Football season is here. The postseason for the PLL is here. Crack open an ice cold Kenny when you're watching those games. You can get ice cold Kennies in the Philadelphia, Maryland, Delaware, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey areas. So Whipsnakes fans, crack open a nice cold Kenny watching your squad duke it out, trying to punch their ticket to the PLL title game this weekend. Use the Kenny Finder at kenwoodbeer.com to see who's got it on tap in those markets, and you can also get it at your local liquor stores. Must be 21 or older to do so, and of course, please drink responsibly. These the first game. It's the New York Atlas with a de facto home game it's like a neutral site home game, like some of these early season college football games, as everyone has been dubbing them the Upstate Bulls, but they take their talents to Long Island for the postseason to take on the Maryland Whipsnakes. How you see it playing out?
I'm not a hater, but I'm running with the Bulls.
I'm a snake. I'm a slippery snake. If you remember that YouTube video, let me know.
I'm trying to keep my grass cut.
My mom laughs at that video like no other. I'm going with the Whips. I just think it's a very similar situation to last week, and they just have postseason experience. They know how to win across the board in the postseason, and not saying the Atlas can't do it, because they have arguably the best player on the planet right now from a scoring perspective in Jeff Teat, and they have the weapons around him to get the job done. I value the veteran experience from this Whipsnakes team a lot in the PLL postseason, and I think they have what it takes to get the job done in a close game. And this is for all the marbles too for the season, where they're playing for the tiebreaker, just on paper. And I think the Whipsnakes are going back to the PLL championship game. Then the nightcap, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Long Island. It is the Carolina Chaos and the Utah Archers. No Tom Schreiber for the Archers. Jack Rowlett back for Chaos. I hate that we got to pick this game. I hate it. I wish the bracket was flipped the way that it initially was on the website, because goddamn, would this be an awesome fucking championship game potentially. I thought I had my mind made up today, and then I saw Matt Moore was back, and I was like, now I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out where I'm going. Because this is a tough matchup to pick. There's so many options for these teams. And it's arguably the two best goalies in the league going toe-to-toe with one another. It is an interesting matchup with the stripe for possessions. It's two elite all-world defenses. And the biggest thing is I wish they could play this game with Tom Schreiber so that everyone was like locked and loaded with their weapons ready to go. And I think it's like tooth and nail like of who could win this game. There's so many different permutations that could happen. But I can't get memed. And I'd be happy with either outcome because we appreciate both teams and their support of this show. I'm not fueling the fire anymore. I'm going with Chaos.
Sorry for the long pause, audio listeners. My brain is working. This might be the hardest game of the season to pick.
Both times these two teams played this season, mind you, was a one-possession game. It was 9-7 in Philly, 15-14 in Baltimore.
I have no explanation behind this pick other than bozo. I literally have no explanation whatsoever for why I'm picking the Archers.
Like, this game is such a coin flip. One bounce changes the outcome of this game one way or the other. That's how close this game is in my book.
I just hate that I don't have any way to explain why I feel either way. Because even if I were to pick Chaos, I wouldn't have an explanation for why.
Like, I don't have a real explanation other than the fact that I don't want to become an internet meme.
But that's a pretty solid explanation. I don't have one other than...
From a game perspective, this game is not going to shock me when the clock hits 0 in the fourth quarter. Whoever comes out on top, it's not going to surprise me. Because either team could win this game. These two teams hate each other. This is a bona fide rivalry with a trip to the championship game on the line. This is a chance for the defending champions to go back and defend their title, or a team who continues to get doubted year in and year out because they finish below 500. They're always the 6 or 7 seed and sneaking into the playoffs, and they still find a way to win, and everybody doubts them week in and week out. And they use that as motivation, and they are trying to get back to their first championship game in a couple years, because obviously they were there in 2022 and lost to the Water Dogs. And then they have the chance to become the first team to make it to 4 championship games in league history. That's a big deal in my book.
The Whip Snakes would tie them, by the way.
Right, if they end up winning. But I don't know. It just feel the way that this postseason bracket lined up, like, it just feels like it's a collision course for a repeat of 2021. And who knows what happens when those two teams meet in Philadelphia for the first time. And maybe that's the reason they're on a collision course, is because when that championship happened, it wasn't in Philly. And The PLL script writing gods need chaos and whips to occur in Philly for it to be cemented in the history books in the city of champions. But I have chaos winning and the whip snakes winning. You've got the archers and the Atlas winning. I wouldn't be mad at any outcome here because regardless, these four teams, whoever ends up being the final two, the Punnett square of outcomes is going to be a must-see TV matchup. And I'm excited regardless. Philly's going to be incredible, and it all starts on Long Island to get the matchup for Philly this weekend on Saturday, ESPN Plus. And those are our PLL Semifinals picks of the week, brought to you by Kenwood Beer. You can't tell me all of these matchups would be unbelievable.
I'm not going into that, man. I'm not. I'm not doing that, bro. You know how I feel about that.
Just put your biases aside.
No. Variety is good. Parity is good. These are things we need.
We've never had a repeat championship game.
Not back to back, but 3 times in 6 years is damn sure close enough. And actually, we have had back to back technically, because the Champ Series in 2020 was Whips Chaos, and then 2021 was Whips Chaos.
Yeah, but that was a different format for the championship series in 2020.
Playoffs are playoffs, dog. The playoff was the same format.
You always got a goalpost move.
The playoffs was the playoffs, my guy. The championship game was the championship game. There were some different factors around it, sure. But 3 times in 6 years is not no bueno. No bueno.
I disagree.
Why?
It would be an electric matchup.
I'm not talking about the matchup. I'm not talking about the on-field product.
You have a chance for a team to win its 3rd title,
bro.
Or a team to be the one team to beat the Whip Snakes twice in a championship.
We're still trying to sell lacrosse. People don't like seeing the same things over and over. This is just...
There's people watching now that were not watching then. It would be the first time they've watched Whips Chaos in a championship game.
Yeah, but also when you show somebody the stats and like, oh, so the Whip Snakes just the best team in the league. You kind of go, well, no. And then they say, but they've been to the championship 4 times and they've won 3 of them. Kind of hard to argue with that in 6 years. There isn't really a whole lot of combating to go against that. You need variety to get people involved.
That just tells me they're consistent.
I'm not opposed to the actual matchup. That is not what I've been saying the entire time. I'm saying I like variety in championship matchups because it draws fans in. It makes everyone feel like they have a chance. Seeing the same people win over and over gets tiring.
I don't know. I wouldn't be bored with it.
I'm not talking about you.
I'm just saying from my perspective.
We're not talking about just you. We're not even talking about just me. We talking
That's
about
what you talk about.
No, I'm talking about people. I'm saying I don't like this.
You are the only person I have seen who would be mad about that.
In the lacrosse world.
Yeah.
You should talk to a lot of people about sports just in general. They don't like seeing the same people go and win championships. That is why people stop liking
greatness.
No. This is what makes people feel like sports are rigged. Because why are the
Here
same
we
teams
go.
winning?
We're not doing this.
Why are the same teams
We're
winning
not
over
doing
and
this.
over?
We're
I
not
told you.
doing this.
I tried not to go down this line. All I'm
You
saying
chose to go down.
No. You brought this conversation up.
I never once uttered sports are rigged because
that's not what I'm
people
saying.
going
But
back.
I didn't want to get back into this Whip Snakes Chaos Championship game thing, and you brought it back up. I'm not saying
a possibility.
I'm not saying sports are rigged. All I'm saying is this is what makes people think those kind of things is when it's constantly the same teams playing.
If you think
other,
sports
constantly
are rigged,
the same win.
If you think sports are rigged,
bad.
seek help. Seek help.
It looks bad. That's all I'm saying.
That's
parity.
All I'm saying.
Parity looks better than the same teams winning over and over. That is the only statement I am making. And if you disagree with that, I cannot wholeheartedly believe that you disagree with that.
If you think sports are rigged, this is for anybody out there, seek help.
So back to what I'm saying. Parity is better than the same teams winning over and over. And I think you agree with that.
Sure. But it also wouldn't bother me to see a repeat matchup.
I'm not going to be like seething at the teat, but I'll definitely just be on Twitter.
You'll be foaming at the mouth looking like the dog from Despicable Me that lives in Gru's front yard with your teeth underbitten like this. Like fucking going nuts. And then you're going to be like Gru and saying you're going to go steal the moon.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'll just be on Twitter asking people. I'll just be on Twitter asking people like, "Oh, how much cooler would it be to have seen like Atlas Chaos?"
Yeah, and then then you'll have the cretins that we can't stand on Twitter in your mentions, and you'll be like, "Oh my god, look who's tweeting in my mentions." Get the fuck out of here with that. Let's go to the dispersal draft.
Hey, you wild for that, yo.
Tell me I'm wrong. The dispersal draft happened. It was pretty much a disaster from an optic standpoint, in my opinion, and that's because none of it was live tweeted, none of it was made available until it was allegedly done. Nobody knows when it actually happened, but we have the results, and the results are in, and some interesting results for sure. It started out Will Malcolm going back to the Colorado Mammoth, Jonathan Donville fulfilling the prophecy. He's going to the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, which left Nick Damude going to the Philadelphia Wings. Ryan Sheridan is going to the Vancouver Warriors. Matthew Gauthier going to the Calgary Roughnecks. Matt Hossack going back to the Saskatchewan Rush. Phil Caputo, for a little bit, went to the Ottawa Black Bears. Josh Medeiros went to the Rochester Nighthawks. Jason Knox ends up going to Halifax. Cam McLeod goes to the Calgary Roughnecks via trade, I believe that was from. Yes, because the Georgia Swarm traded the 10th pick in the dispersal draft to the Roughnecks in exchange for Seth Van Scheppen. Justin Sykes goes to San Diego, which so he was a draftless player. Elijah Gash goes to the Toronto Rock. Liam Patton, for the time being, ended up going to the Ottawa Black Bears. Tony Malcolm goes to the Philadelphia Wings in a trade with the Buffalo Bandits, who traded the 14th pick in the dispersal draft to the Wings in exchange for the Wings' second-round pick in 2025. Also, the Black Bears were able to select Will Johnston because the Firewolves traded the 13th pick to the Black Bears in exchange for Will Johnston, which ended up being Liam Patton. Brent Mitchell goes to Colorado. Dylan Hutchison goes to Las Vegas. Connor Sellers goes to the Philadelphia Wings. Ronan Push goes to the Vancouver Warriors. Draftless player Justin Morgan goes to the Calgary Roughnecks. Evan Messenger goes to the Saskatchewan Rush. Colin Sharkey goes to the Ottawa Black Bears. Mike Sisselberger goes to the Rochester Nighthawks. Pat Foley, I think one of the most underrated players in lacrosse, goes to the Halifax Thunderbirds. What a perfect spot for him. Caleb Kuber goes to the Georgia Swarm. Callum Crawford goes to the San Diego Seals and rejected the franchise designation, so he's an unrestricted free agent. Brandon Goodwin goes to the Vegas Desert Dogs, and Tim Manning, a draftless player, goes to the Philadelphia Wings. Things that stood out to me, Paul Day had a masterclass dispersal draft. And that's not even me being somebody who is just a fan of the team. This is somebody who covers the team, and seeing the way that he operated in this and got very talented players and made this team better with the opportunities in front of them. To get 4 players on your roster right now, 3 of them which have NLL experience, and one of them is a draft player, which was the quote-unquote Mr. Irrelevant pick in Tim Manning. That is a brilliant job by Paul Day, the GM, to set up his rookie head coach with 4 highly talented players to add to this roster before the actual college entry draft. And then the Halifax Thunderbirds, I thought, did a fantastic job with their picks, getting Pat Foley later on and taking Jason Knox with the 9th pick. And I love Donville going to Vegas. I think it's a perfect fit. He makes that team so much better. Just adds a huge element of knowledge and experience and just like a face to that franchise. And Will Malcolm going back to Colorado is awesome, as well as Matt Hosick going back to Saskatchewan. They kind of like got put out on loan like European soccer, as Teddy Jenner said, to go get better, and they did just that. But yeah, that and just a brilliant job, and we'll talk more about a couple of the moves in a bit that came from this, but what stood out to you from the dispersal draft?
Teams that struggled last year really took advantage of this. You saw them kind of go after the pieces that they need the most. Like, a lot of teams tend to do that in the draft. Dispersal drafts are a great opportunity to do that because you're getting guys who have already been proven to do so at this level, or already have kind of adjusted to the speed and the physicality. So then you can just add on to what it is that you need them to get better at. And it's a lot easier to work with someone who's already been in the league and knows some of the nuances and in and outs of what you have going on, rather than a rookie. And I felt like teams who needed to get better took advantage of this opportunity of the dispersal draft and got better. And then I think there were some teams out there who are already pretty good who just went, we'll grab that little piece there, and maybe we'll take this little thing over here just to have options or to possibly get a little bit better to get over a certain hump. So I feel like most teams went into this knowing where they stood as a team and did very well at to not make any foolish mistakes.
Yeah, and I think one of the big dominoes from this is Ottawa traded 2 players that they got in this dispersal draft, along with a 2027 first round pick, which Deej, I don't know if you know, the 2027 NLL entry draft is pretty loaded with some pretty talented up and coming players in box lacrosse in particular, and just in lacrosse in general. That is what I would like to call the Trey Deer draft, as well as a plethora of other wildly talented players. That first round pick is going to the Philadelphia Wings, along with Phil Caputo and Liam Patton, in exchange for Zach Higgins. I knew Paul Day had to have something up his sleeve when he drafted Nick Damude 3rd overall. Obviously, Damude was one of the blue chip players in this dispersal draft, along with Donville, Will Malcolm. I would even put Matt Hosick in that conversation. I know a lot of people put Jason Knox in that conversation. I would also put Ash in that conversation. I think he's extremely talented in Toronto, got an absolute dog with the 12th pick there. Nick Damude is obviously younger than Zach Higgins, and I got to say off the rip, as somebody who has been covering Zach Higgins since he arrived in Philadelphia, what a joy it was to cover Zach Higgins. Just a stand-up teammate, stood on his head every single game possible, set a franchise record for saves last year, and never complained one bit. Was always a team-first guy. Just he kept the Wings alive in so many games, in so many situations. I will forever be thankful for Zach Higgins. I wish him nothing but the best, and I know he's from Canada, so him playing for Ottawa is probably a lot easier travel-wise for him than it was coming down to Philadelphia every week. I wish him nothing but the best. And you got a haul for a goaltender who is extremely talented. But at the end of the day, I want to pull up Zach Higgins just age-wise to compare, because Nick Damude, who you get in the dispersal draft, is 25 years old. And Deej, what do we always say is one of the most important things to have in lacrosse, but in particular the NLL? Having a goalie. And the Wings also have Deacon Knott on the roster, another young goalie. But when you get a kid who is 25 years old and can come into the fold for you, has NLL playing experience already, was with San Diego in 2020 and then goes to Panther City for 2022 and 2023, has 35 games of starting experience for Panther City, and racks up minutes. Like this year, played the most minutes he's ever played in his career, almost 1,000 minutes on the season. Goes 10-6 for the goalie record there, his best season to date in a full season. Only allowed 167 goals this year, made 624 saves, a 10.31 goals against average, a 789 save percentage, which was the best of his career. The sky's the limit for how he can improve and how much better he can get. And he's coming to a team that is ready to go and win a championship, and he's going to be able to grow with them. And I think just the development process for Damude in this situation is going to be great. I really liked his game when he's with Panther City. I thought he was one of the more underrated goalies in the league, and nobody was really talking about him too much because there are so many talented goalies in the league. But he's a super talented player, former 44th overall pick of the Rochester Nighthawks in 2018. And to get a 25-year-old goaltender ready to rock and roll for you, where Higgy is 33, this is probably the last couple seasons of his career, potentially, depending on the direction he wants to go. But obviously going back home to Canada is huge for him, and I'm happy for him. But I think this is a huge win. Plus, the Wings get Liam Patton back, kind of similar vein. He was on this Wings roster, got taken by Panther City in the dispersal or in the expansion draft. And you get Phil Caputo, who is a certified Philadelphia Wings killer anytime he stepped on the floor with Panther City. Every single game, dude, that the Wings were playing Panther City and it went to overtime or it was a 1-goal game, who was scoring the game winner is Phil Caputo. And Paul Day said, we're not going to have that happen anymore. You're going to be on our roster. And I love his game. He's going to fit in so well with this team. And I think this is just a win-win trade for both sides. Ottawa finally gets their goalie, and the Wings get 2 ready to rock and roll players for this roster and a first-round draft pick down the line, which you don't know what Ottawa's going to be in 2027. And it's a loaded, talented draft that by the time that rolls around in, 3 years, some of these guys on the current roster are probably not going to be here anymore. So you need to restock and reload, and that's a great move by Paul Day.
I agree. I think the bigger piece is just putting people in positions where they're comfortable. I think Higgins is great, but I think he's going to be even better playing for Ottawa because he's going to be comfortable being at home and traveling less. And I mean, Damude is an awesome guy to get back in return. He was great in his time with Panther City. So I think he's going to be great for Philadelphia as well. And we'll be able to handle kind of some of those tough pressures that Higgins wasn't quite ready for. Being behind a defense like Philadelphia, who's a work in progress right now, means you got to be stable. You got to be strong, and you got to be mentally prepared to see lots of shots every single time you're out on the floor, and to kind of hold that weight down on the defensive end until you get a little more help around you. And I think Damude is a little more prepared to do so than Higgins, not to take anything away from Zach and what he did in his time at Philly as he went to, the playoffs multiple times and such. But it definitely is a tough task to bolster down a defense like that. Damude is definitely prepared to do so. And then the other piece is Philadelphia just needs help, and they answer that help.
And I think you helped Damude by getting a Liam Patton who was playing in front of him defensively in Panther City the last 2 years, where Liam really expanded on his game, got better. As a whole, he's gritty as all hell. He's not afraid to back down from any matchup. And Liam Patton's only 27 years old, which blows my mind. I didn't realize how young he truly was, because he was on this Wings team in 2019 and 2020. So, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago now, and he was that young. Liam Patton played with Ryan Wagner, who will be back on this team this year as well. I think that's huge. You're bringing a guy back that was a talented player for you at the time. He went to Panther City, got even better, has become a veteran in this league, knows how to play his position that much better, and he's coming back to play for a coach that was here, and now it's the head coach of this team. So I'm very excited about Liam Patton coming back. I can't wait to see him first home game of the year. And I mean, Phil Caputo is just a dog. He fits in with the timeline of this team with the Mitch Joneses and Ben McIntosh and Blaze Reardon and Joe Resetarits and the rest of those boys. Offensively, he's so good. Like, I've always been a fan of Phil Caputo's game, and it's rare. We talked about this when the Water Dogs brought in Jake Richard, where it's rare to bring in a captain to your locker room in any capacity. Phil Caputo wore the A for Panther City. It's rare you get to bring that into your locker room and to have a leader like that coming in, and I think that's going to be a huge help for this Wings locker room. Just another asset from a leadership perspective and a very talented player. But yeah, I'm over the moon thrilled with the way that the Wings dispersal draft went. I like what Halifax did a lot, like I mentioned. I also like what Calgary did. I think Gautier's a fucking dog, and to get him at number 5 is awesome for them. Colorado getting Will Malcolm back is awesome. It's going to help them immediately with some of their offensive issues that they had last year. And again, I think Elijah Gash is one of the steals of the draft. Like, obviously, he hasn't played too much in the NLL, but man, his game is unreal. We said the same thing when the Whipsnakes drafted him in the PLL. It's like, holy shit, the rich get richer, and they got Elijah Gash. I think he's a super talented player. For him to end up in a situation like Toronto is like so perfect for him, where he can learn from somebody like Treasy. He can learn from just that gritty, tenacious defense that they have in front of Rosie. He's a perfect fit for Toronto.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that's going to go in and be able to really just fit in to the locker room, and I think that's going to help just make his transition out onto the field a little bit easier and better. And once he feels totally settled in, I think he's going to be an instrumental piece in possibly helping them kind of get over that hump that they've been in for quite a few years now.
How do you feel about trading Seth Van Scheppen away?
It really seems like we're just cleaning house right now. So
turn into Cam McLeod, which I saw you guys re-signed as well.
Yeah, as much as I want to be upset, and possibly I said I wanted to find a new team. I think I've said that a couple times. It's not going to happen. I'm going to sit here through this rebuild phase. I'm going to stand strong, buckle down. It's going to be tough, but you can see clearly that we're entering a rebuild phase as a franchise.
I don't even know. It's weird because obviously, like, the whole Christian Del Bianco thing is still like up in the air. But like, you bring back Curtis Dixon, but it also, like, this week, some of the signings happen, and Curtis Dixon goes, I hope a certain player has a no trade clause. So it felt like Curtis didn't want to leave San Diego per se. It's a weird situation where, like, on paper, like, there's still so many talented players on that Calgary roster that, like, it almost feels like a retool as it currently sits. But, the offseason's a long one. We'll see what the draft brings and what other moves happen. And next week, we will dive more into free agency when it all kind of shakes out. There's been some moves here, but it's still early and want to get everything right and a whole bunch of moves that could still happen and everything. And it might not even happen on next week because we will have the PLL championship to preview, and that obviously takes precedent for us with just the coverage we'll have. Plus, Sammy Adams is coming on the pod, so you already know it's going to be a banger. But dispersal draft happened. Let us know your thoughts on players that ended up on your team and how excited you are for them to join your squad. Make sure you guys are following us on the social medias at OTB LaxPod. Follow DJ SCS_next grade on Twitter. Follow Chase at the PLL Pipeline. Follow Hoots at Hootsport Media. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. It really does help, guys. In the meeting that we had today, the more you subscribe, the better off that meeting is going to pay out in the long run and make things even more awesome across the board for everybody. So keep subscribing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Leave a like, leave a comment, ring the bell icon. Click the link in the description as well and check out Shootout For Soldiers and gear up for everything they have coming at you this weekend from USA Lacrosse headquarters in Baltimore. Also this weekend on Long Island is the not Stars and Stripes, the Battle of the Badges, 29th annual Battle of the Badges going down. We will have a video up breaking down all the information of what's going to be going on there, as that is also happening on Long Island this weekend. So definitely get geared up for that. And of course, this has been episode number 339 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube and presented by Shootout For Soldiers episode of Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse pod on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. For Deej, I'm KB. Next week, it's PLL Championship Week. Media Day is going to be a banger. Street lacrosse is in my city. It's a parade inside my city. Yeah. And we got a whole lot of fun coming at you next week across the board that you're not going to want to miss. But until then, enjoy Saturday afternoon and evening and night of lacrosse. We'll be back next week with Sammy Adams and PLL Media Day and championship preview and seeing who is fighting for the title of PLL champions. Until then, we'll see you then. Peace.